BYU just keeps adding players. This is a preseason top 5 team.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Thursday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or watch to get your Thursday started the right way. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Special shout out to all the everydayers who are here with us today and all the great members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord community. That link's in the show notes. Welcome in. Let's get to it. Coming up on the show today, BYU adds another piece. UC-Riverside's Nate Pickens will talk about what that means for BYU. And then the ACC has announced they are officially moving from 20 conference games down to 18. What are the ramifications for that, both in terms of conference play and non-conference play? We're going to dive into all of that, my takes on it. But first, we got to get to talking BYU with Locked On Cougars host Jake Hatch. The last time I talked to Jake Hatch, he was hanging out with me on this show from vacation, where he was during the midst of the NCAA tournament after BYU was just bombing away. Great stuff there. But now we're in off-season mode and Jake is back home and we get to talk about BYU just adding dude after dude after dude after dude after dude after dude. It just seems like every day there's more noise from what they're doing out there. And today, Jake, specifically what brings us together is the addition of UC-Riverside. He comes in as a senior. And Jake, we're going to have a bigger picture conversation about BYU here. But I want to start by looking at Pickens and what you think he adds to this team.
The biggest thing for Pickens is he fits the role that Dallin Hall took on last year for BYU. And what that is essentially is the backup point guard role, but also capable of playing off the off guard role, the number 2, for those of you that like to label guys with numbers in basketball. Dallin Hall was really good at that last year. He was a secondary ball handler alongside Jaeger Demon. This year, it's going to be Robert Wright III with the ball in his hands mainly. And then a guy like Pickens can come in, relieve him when need be, but also at the same time, you can put them on the floor together and you can have 2 primary ball handlers that can execute this offense. I really like this pickup because I think it fits that role almost perfectly.
What's so interesting to me about that, Jake, is that as I've been trying to diagnose in the portal era what sets apart good teams from great ones is not just the starting 5, but do you have somebody that can come in after a Rob Wright and not just be a body, but can actually at worst maintain what you've been doing, right? And it feels like Pickens helps add that level of depth for this Cougars team ahead of the 25-26 season.
Absolutely. You and I both watched BYU play as deep as a 12-man rotation last year. They went to the NCAA tournament and it was a 10-man rotation. That depth paid major dividends for them on their run to the Sweet 16. I think Kevin Young has every intention, if guys prove capable of it, of running that same type of a rotation. That is, I think, why a guy like Nate Pickens, he may be thinking, I might not be starting here, but understanding how BYU operated last year with the rotations, he's going to see the court plenty in this system and should give him plenty of opportunities to shine alongside guys like AJ DeBonsa as well as Richie Saunders. So I'm thinking that Kevin Young's got a plan that, hey, he learned something last year. If he has a deep rotation, it may prove to be actually a bonus and a strength for them in a way, and they're going to utilize that again this year if at all possible.
Man, that's so interesting because I feel like the other part of that is it takes special guys to be willing to buy in. Like, yes, the minutes are going to be there at a place like BYU, right? Where as you said, Coach Young's going to play, at least he did in his first year, a deep bench. But you're also not starting, right? And so I feel like a guy like this, like Pickens coming in, is saying, I know the deal. I understand what I'm stepping into, and yet I'm willing to do so because I want to be part of something bigger. What does that do for a locker room?
Well, that's the thing. It's got buy-in. That's the thing that shows you. Now, there is an NIL component to this. These guys are being rewarded monetarily, obviously, take on the roles that they are playing. But for them still to accept the fact that a guy like Pickens, he could go start at a number of programs around this country, but he's probably going to be a bench player. And I think he understands that BYU is poised to do a whole lot of winning this year. We saw John Rothstein earlier this week say that BYU, essentially the expectation is a Final Four run. BYU's never been to a Final Four, Isaac. So if they can pull that off, you're part of something absolutely historic in BYU basketball history. And I think that's a compelling pitch and a thought for a guy like Pickens, as well as the other pickups BYU's had so far.
And when you're picking, I mean, this is your last go round if you're Pickens. And so, like, I get that deal. He's like, I want to go somewhere where it seems like we're going to have a massive opportunity to do something massive, because I mean, there have been 3 Elite Eights, Jake, am I thinking correctly? Like in BYU history?
There's actually only one, funny enough. They've got 3 Sweet 16s in the last 50.
Maybe that's what I had in my head. Yeah.
So the Sweet 16 last year, Jimmer Fredette had a Sweet 16, and then Danny Ainge went to the Sweet 16 and ultimately made it to the Elite 8 with that dash in 1981 against Notre Dame. So BYU's been to the NCAA tournament a lot. It's 30-plus appearances without a Final Four appearance. So if they can pull it off this year, it would absolutely make history, and you would be an all-time legend if you're a guy like Pickens as a member of that program.
So, Jake, let's zoom out then and look at that big picture kind of conversation, because I mean, yes, I know Jaeger Demon's not back, right? I know there's some other things, but there's obviously Debanza coming in. You keep Richie Saunders and Keba Keita and Dawson Baker, right? Like guys that have been a critical part of this team already. And you start to bring in all these other pieces that we're seeing happen. Jake, is it crazy of me to think that when the preseason AP poll comes out, we could see the 3 letters Y, U, and B in the order of B, Y, and U in the top 5?
If they're not, I'll be very surprised at this juncture. Just the way that BYU's, the hype that's building around this program right now, they absolutely should be top 5, at the very worst, top 10. But it's going to be a crazy season in Provo, Utah. There has never been the level of expectation that we are experiencing already, and we're still 5-6 months away from the start of this season, but there is a whole lot of excitement for this program, and if they can live up to the hype, there's every opportunity for them to be a 1 seed and make a run to the Final Four if at all possible.
Man, that's great. And what's interesting, the Big 12, similar to what we learned about the ACC, and we're going to talk about that actually in a little bit. Big 12 is cutting back to 18 league games next year, and so I'm very curious to see when that Big 12 schedule comes out, who all will be on BYU's ledger, who all Coach Young's going to have in the non-con slate, because I feel like when you got a team of this expected caliber, you go big on the scheduling. But we also know that Big 12 teams have pulled back in non-con a little bit because of the gauntlet of the Big 12 schedule. So what are your expectations? Yeah.
Let me interject here. BYU is kind of following the Arizona model, and they're going to play everybody. They're going to go to Madison Square Garden and play in that Jimmy V Classic against Clemson. They're playing in an MTE down in Orlando, Florida. They have plans. There's reports out there, I've heard it myself, that they plan to play in Boston so AJ Debonsa can play in front of his hometown fans out there. And the opponent is supposed to be a Power 5 or essentially an A10 at the very worst in terms of an opponent. They're playing coast to coast, and they're loading up in the non-conference slate. And yes, that obviously yield maybe a worse record entering Big 12 play, but I think Kevin Young understands that the cupcake schedule they played last year, it actually hurt them entering conference play.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And thankfully, like the analytics are good enough now that even if there's more numbers on the L side of the column, we see what's happening, and we see how good the teams are, and we see the efficiency margins and all of that stuff. And so you don't have to worry about that as much. And it feels like that level of preparation is probably going to be good for this team to set them up for March, Jake.
Yeah, they absolutely think that it's going to make them a better team if they go through some of the battles early that they did not experience last year in the non-conference slate. It took BYU 6-7 games in Big 12 play to finally realize, hey, the level we got to play at to win at the level we want to win at. And yes, they made an incredible run down the stretch, run at this past season, but they want to hit the ground running when it comes to Big 12 play, and they have every intention of loading up on this schedule to do just that.
All right, we'll keep tabs on the Cougars throughout the offseason, see if there's anybody else we need to bring into this crazy roster that Coach Young's putting together. Folks, make sure you go check out all of Jake's great work on Locked On Cougars, where, man, things are happening in Provo, and one of the, if not the most, one of the most anticipated seasons ever for the BYU Cougars. Can't wait. Jake will check in again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Jake and I just talked about it, but the ACC on Wednesday announced that they were bumping down to 18 conference games in an effort to try to get more bids in the NCAA tournament. Is it going to work out? And what's the shape of the conference schedule going to be? We'll talk about all of that in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, look, the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game is unlike anything else. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment, it feels huge. How about these Knicks comebacks against the Celtics? Good grief. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it all without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high like it is right now. Prices on the app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, and those deals can save you up to 60%, and not just on basketball, but on concerts, comedy, theater, so much more. Plus, they have all-in pricing that you can toggle on, meaning that there's no surprise fees when you get to checkout. You know exactly what you're paying when you select the seat. Speaking of prices going down the closer it gets to game time, tonight, 7:30 p.m., Game 2, Warriors at T-Wolves. Warriors are up 1-0 despite being Curryless, I'll call it. And I found a ticket for this game. Get in the door. All-in price of $109. That's a phenomenal deal. You should go check it out as well and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms do apply. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We discussed this a couple weeks ago on the show. It was rumored that the ACC was going to drop from 20 league games to 18, and Matt Norlander from CBS Sports reported on Wednesday that that is indeed going to be the case, and then the ACC put it out as well, so it's officially official from the horse's mouth. So tracing back, the 20-game slate for the ACC started back in the 2019-20 season. That coincided with the advent of the ACC network that year, and it's been a 20-game slate every year from then till now, other than the COVID-shortened 2020-21 season when we didn't get there. The big thing is that this is going to be implemented immediately, like this 2025-26 season, and is going to be what the ACC is going to do. Now, will it continue? Will the shape of it be exactly the same? Who knows? They changed it last year when they brought in SMU, Cal, and Stanford. And so, I mean, this thing could be evolving as the years go on. So I'm sure they'll do it this year, evaluate it, and then see if they want to continue doing it. But the big hope from Commissioner Jim Phillips and the rest of the conference is that it's going to lead to more NCAA tournament bids. Will it? I'm not convinced of that by any stretch of the imagination. We'll talk more about why, because basically the hope is if we cut out two of your conference games, that allows you to schedule two more non-conference games, hopefully games that will benefit your resume come Selection Sunday. Well, we'll talk about that non-con side of it in a second, because right now I want to talk about the conference side of it. And to be honest, there have been some times lately when I've said things about the SEC in the vein of whether talking about football or basketball, but specific to our show, basketball, like, you made this super conference bet and now you got to lie in it, SEC. And now it's time to cast that light on the ACC of, look, you made this mega conference of 18 teams. You've got teams weighing you down on the bottom end. Deal with it. Now, SMU wasn't that either in football or basketball, but thus far, Cal and Stanford kind of have been. And obviously other schools are down there at the bottom in basketball. And so it's like, you kept adding and kept adding and kept adding. You weren't able to add the same level of capability schools in the same way like the SEC was, or at least in terms of getting their coaches, and the Big 12 is. So this is a bet that you now have to lie in, ACC, and figure it out. And so they're trying to. Now, what's funny is as soon as we heard 18 games a little while ago, I operated under this assumption. The 20-game model this past year with 18 teams was you play 3 teams, both home and away. You have a primary partner that you play home and away every year. You have a secondary partner that you play home and away every year, and then a rotating partner that you play home and away every year as well. So that's 6 games. And then there were 14 games against the remaining 14 teams that you played once each 7 of them on the road, 7 of them at home. That gave you at least one game against all 18 or 17 other teams in the conference. My assumption was that that's what they were going to want to try to do, keep that going. And in that case, what it would mean would be playing one team, both home and away, and then the other 16 teams just home or just away, meaning you would have 8 home-only opponents, 8 road-only opponents, and one that was both. The ACC, however, wanted to maintain more than one just primary partner. And so what they did was they kept a second team that you play home and away against and kept the number of single games the same as when it was 20 games. So it's really a home and away opponent that we're cutting out. So let's say, for example, Duke and North Carolina, the greatest rivalry in college athletics, right? That's going to be the thing. And we've got the rivalry matchups, the primary partners for all 18 schools. And we'll list them off here in a minute. But what's interesting is you got those primary partners, but then the secondary partners, it's not set. That will rotate every year. So that means there are some other high-level rivalry games we're used to that those teams are only going to play once a year now. And that's kind of weird to think about. But again, you made this bed, and now you have to lie in it. So what that means is you will play 2 opponents home and away. That's 4 games. You will play 14 opponents once, 7 on the road, 7 at home. And that now is 18 games. What you notice, though, if you added that up, 14 opponents, 1 game only. That's 14 of the 17 schools. And then 2 schools home and away. That's now 16 schools, but you've already got to 18 games. What's it mean? The biggest interesting thing to me in all of this is that you will not play every team in the ACC. If you are Duke, since we were talking about them, you will play North Carolina home and away. You will play a TBD, a secondary opponent, both home and away. And then you will play 14 other schools, 7 of them home only, 7 of them road only. And there is one ACC team that Duke will never play this upcoming season unless they play them in the ACC tournament. A wrinkle I'm curious to find out, could you play that team as part of your non-conference schedule? If you wanted to, like, let's say you're Duke and they kind of screwed you in scheduling and it was another, like a Clemson or somebody else that's a Louisville or something like that you didn't get a game against. It's like, wait, but that's defeating the purpose of what we were trying to do. So I'm curious to see if the schedule makers do things to keep the big boys happy with this. Like we're going to see the projected top teams play. It's probably, if you're Duke, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a Boston College caliber team. That is the team you don't play. We'll keep our eyes on that. And how does this affect, like, it'll just be interesting to see who's traveling west and who's not, who's traveling to Texas and who's not. That's going to be an interesting wrinkle in this as well. So that's where it stands. It's interesting. I think for me, the thing is, I would rather see more home and aways. And so if you've already pulled back the cover on, hey, you're not going to play every ACC team, well, then just raise that number to 3 and keep 3 home and away schools. That way you could have 2 that you still play every year and 1 that's rotating. If that's already a thing, why not make it even more so? I mean, it's just, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. But the next part we got to iron out is, okay, ACC, you've given the conference back these 2 non-con games to be able to play to hopefully help resumes. But teams can do what they want. How are they going to decide who are they going to play? We'll talk about that angle on it in just a second. Right after I tell you about the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K and this fancy hat that I'm wearing. Thanks, Amazon. Appreciate the headgear. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles, things like EA Sports College Football 25 or Call of Duty Black Ops 6 or many, many others. You can do that as easily as you stream all your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and auto low latency mode advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds that you need to stay competitive. But maybe you're like me and you're like, honestly, Isaac, I'm not much of a gamer. I don't know that I could use this. No problem at all. That's just one way you can use the Fire Stick. The way my family does it, I've got a Fire TV Stick on every TV in my house, and we use it to access our live TV that we watch, all our streaming stuff, anything we watch on a TV. We're using the Amazon Fire TV Stick for it. I love it. It's so easy and great to use. If you want to join us, the Schade family, in doing that, head on over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. It's available on select devices, including the Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and the Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Check it all out. Okay, so we looked at the ACC conference game portion of this, like how is it lined out? Who are you going to play? Is it actually going to get the ACC more bids in the NCAA tournament? Well, if you lose two from your ACC play, that means you gain two in your non-con play, because college basketball teams get a total of 31 games. If you had 20 ACC games, that means you got previously 11 non-con games. But now with cutting back to 18, you bump up to 13. What's interesting is last year, the SEC was the only one of the Power 4 conferences to stay at 18 conference games. The ACC, Big 12, and Big 10 were all at 20. And now both the Big 12 and the ACC have cut back down to 18. The Big 10 is the outlier, and the Big East continues to play a 20-game schedule because they have 11 teams, so they can play a true round robin with their 20 games. I love that. Don't touch it, Big East. That makes a ton of sense to me. But as for the ACC, I feel like it's going to be different every year what you do. Right now, these seem like 2 extra games to us. In future years, if the ACC continues this scheduling model, it'll just be we've got 13 non-con games. But as for this year, I'm curious to see what teams do with it. Do they, schedule 2 more high majors than they would have? Do they schedule 2 more low or mid majors than they would have? Do they schedule 1 of each? What's hard to answer that question is because every team is going to be looking at different stuff and what they already got on the books. Some teams are going to be overloaded with their high major opponents. And so they're like, hey, this is great. We could use 2 more low risk, low reward teams, some buy games. In that scenario, though, doesn't it kind of just go against what you're trying to accomplish as the ACC? Let's go play 2 quad 3, quad 4 non-con games to replace 2 quad 3, quad 4 ACC games that we were trying to get rid of, right? Or maybe the non-con or the conference games that you lost were against better quality ACC opponents, and now you're getting the quad 3 and or quad 4 game on your books. That's not good either. It doesn't help your net all that much unless you just abolish them and then whatever. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch how these ACC teams, and I guess the Big 12 teams as well, how they choose to utilize their non-con play and who that is. I think for most teams, it's going to make sense to split these. So I'm very curious to see how this progresses. But the question is, will this legitimately be a benefit to the ACC? Well, of course, we don't know that. We haven't played a single game. A ball has not been tipped. Because part of it is the big issue last year for the ACC, at least starting this season, was that they didn't win their non-conference games. And so I still hold, as I did when we first did a show about this, that I don't know that this necessarily helps the ACC all that much land more NCAA tournament bids. ultimately that's about winning basketball games. I don't care who's on the other side of the floor. You got to go out and win. And so I guess when we look at the non-conference scheduling portion of this, we're looking at what games can you go out and get to win. So that's just going to be a very interesting wrinkle with this as well. The other thing on the conference portion side of it is that I did want to make sure you're aware of the primary partners for these teams who, the one that's like, I will play a home and home every year against this team. And this is in some alphabetical order. I don't know how they chose what they want to do, but here you go. Boston College and Notre Dame, Clemson and Georgia Tech. That makes sense geographically. Like when I'm working my way through saying all the ACC teams, I start at the South and work my way up. And you say Florida State. I'm going to imagine when I look at this, Florida State. That's dumb. Florida State and Miami. You look at it, yeah, they're partners. Then you work your way up and you say Georgia Tech and Clemson. Yep, they're partners. And then you get to the state of North Carolina and you say North Carolina and Duke. Yep, they're partners. And you say NC State and Wake Forest. Yep, they're partners. You say Virginia and Virginia Tech. Yep, they're partners, right? So I've already done 10 of them just by geographically going up it with my assumptions of how that would go. So you've done 10. That means there are 8 schools left. I think it's pretty safe to say that Cal and Stanford are going to be primary partners. Yes. SMU, let's hang on to them because that's an outlier. But you've got, so now we've said 12. We got 6 schools left. So you've got SMU, Pitt and Syracuse. That's got to be one. Yep. So now you're down to SMU, BC, Notre Dame, and Louisville. So my guess is it's going to be SMU and Louisville. Yep, that's right. And then BC and Notre Dame, which we had already mentioned. So geographically, this makes a ton of sense for the primary partners. And so you like that. And obviously, we don't have the breakdown yet of how it's going to go. So we'll keep our eyes on that. But for me, it's all eyes on who do these ACC schools utilize those 2 extra non-con games to schedule. It's interesting exercise. All right, gang, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for joining us. Really big thanks to Jake Hatch for joining us from Locked On Cougars. Again, make sure you go check out all his great work there. Man, he does a phenomenal job of covering all things BYU. If you've not subscribed to Locked On College Basketball here on YouTube, for those of you watching here, or for here if you're listening back, subscribe. Either way, we'd love to have you. If you are not part of the Locked On College Basketball Discord, if you've not been talking about BYU in there, if you've not been talking about the ACC scheduling stuff, we'd love to have you in there. That link's in the show notes, and it's absolutely free to join. But for now, I want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Pope. Shouts to McBruins. And until tomorrow when Andy Patton and I take you home for the week, peace.